So next system we will discuss is the urinary system. Your urinary system is the major excretory system of the body. So one of its major organs is your kidneys. You have two kidneys, one on the right, one on the left, and your kidneys filter a large volume of blood. So wastes from the blood are collected and formed urine, no? For urine is the form that is being excreted. Urine would consist of an excess water. So when you say excess water, this is the water that the body does not need, excess ions, metabolic waste, including protein byproduct, no? Called your urea, and other toxic substances. So if you see, the kidneys excrete all of these as waste. Waste because those that are in excess and the body does not need, and metabolic waste, which is um, a byproduct mostly of some processes in the body, and the rest are toxic substances which can be harmful to the body if not excreted. So you see your kidneys have a very important function. You have different functions of the kidneys. First is for excretion. So we already discussed excretion, a portion of it, but nearly 20% of your cardiac output is filtered by the kidneys each minute. When you say cardiac output, this is the blood coming out of your left ventricle. Okay, it's the portion of blood that is pumped out of the left ventricle that goes to aorta, then into the entire system. Okay, so 20% of it is filtered each minute in your kidneys. As the fluid flows through the kidneys, it is slowly modified until it is converted into urine. So we have a process how this is formed, okay? The urine formation we will discuss later. Then the kidney is also responsible for the regulation of blood volume and pressure. So kidneys produce either a large volume of urine, no? This large volume would be a diluted urine, okay? Or a small volume of concentrated urine, okay, depending on the hydration level of the body. So you see, if you drink lots of water, that means you have an excess water that the body needs, and you will see you have a very light colored urine, no? Parang tubig minsan ang color sa urine. But if you are dehydrated and you don't drink enough fluids, the body, your kidneys would try to conserve water as much as possible. That's why it only creates no small amount of concentrated urine. This urine is dark colored, no, a dark yellow. So you would know your hydration also with regards to the characteristic of your urine. Then the kidneys produce an enzyme called renin. This is a very important enzyme, okay, that would regulate blood volume and pressure. This is enzyme renin is further discussed when we tackle the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone mechanism. This renin-angiotensin-aldosterone mechanism is a mechanism in order to maintain the blood volume as well as the blood pressure in the body. Another function of the kidneys is to regulate blood solute concentration. So what are these major solutes that the kidneys regulate? Okay, these are your major ions, which are your sodium, chloride, potassium, calcium, bicarbonate, and phosphate. And other solutes also are being regulated, no? For example, is your urea. Another function is to regulate extracellular fluid pH. Okay, so I mentioned many times already that pH, no, maintaining a normal pH is very important in the blood. And if we have a derangement in pH, even if very small, no, ang derangement is already very dangerous. So our normal pH is 7.35 to 7.45. Below that is acidic and is dangerous, and beyond 7.45 is basic, and that is also very dangerous. So how does the kidney contribute to the regulation of pH? It's via the secretion of hydrogen. So it would vary, no? Depende kung acidic ang blood or basic ang blood, the kidneys variably secrete this hydrogen. Okay? Another important function is the regulation of red blood cell synthesis. So we know that kidneys contribute to your red blood cell formation via the hormone erythropoietin. Okay, this hormone is secreted when the kidneys detect that there is a need for an additional red blood cell. Okay, so for example, if you are anemic, then the kidneys detect it, it will secrete this very important hormone, okay, erythropoietin. This presence of this hormone would stimulate the synthesis of your new red blood cells. Okay, this will signal your red bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. So if you see patients with chronic kidney disease or end-stage renal disease, they are most likely anemic, no, maputla, because the kidneys are damaged and they cannot perform this function anymore, no. There is no erythropoietin anymore, okay, no production of erythropoietin. That's why your red bone marrow does not have any signal to stimulate it, no, for the production of new red blood cells, okay. But in a CKD patient or chronic kidney disease patient, erythropoietin can be given via injection, no? At least twice a week, okay? So yun yun, but very expensive. This one is very expensive. Another important function is the regulation of vitamin D synthesis. Your kidneys help control blood levels of calcium, no? By regulating the synthesis of vitamin D to its active form. Your vitamin D and calcium, they are always together. Okay? If you want to raise your blood calcium, you have to produce your vitamin D in order to signal, no, the production of more or secretion of more calcium. So magkasama ang dalawang to. Okay? With the function of vitamin D, it's more of the function of your kidneys, it's more of the vitamin D. Okay? So D means vitamin D in your kidneys. So your kidneys are bean-shaped organs and they are located retroperitoneal. When so yung retroperitoneal, that means behind the peritoneum, no? So nasa likod sila. Compared with your abdominal organs, they are more on the anterior part, okay? They are within the peritoneum, but your kidneys are behind the peritoneum. So you will see them, one on the right and one on the left. Okay, they are located on each side of your vertebral column. Okay, with regards to the spinal column, the level of your kidneys would be from the last thoracic vertebra, T12 to L3, no? So T12 to L3, yan yung um, location niya with regards to the spinal column. Okay. Now you see here, this is your right side, this is your left side. Your right kidney is slightly lower, no? Medyo mas mababa siya compared to your left kidney. This is why, because your right kidney, no, is on top of your right kidney is the big liver. Okay, superior to it is the big liver. That's why your kidney is lower, slightly lower than the left. Okay. Then the kidneys have two major organ regions. No, you have an outer cortex. So if you see this picture, this outer part here, no, yung maraming blood vessels. Okay, that's the cortex. So this is the location for the blood filtering structures of the kidney. Okay, that's why ang daming blood vessels dyan. And the inner portion are your medulla. So you see this one, ito medulla. Okay? So the medulla, collection of tubes and ducts that transport fluid throughout the kidney and modify it into the urine. So you just remember, outer part is the cortex, inner portion is the medulla, and the cortex is responsible for the blood filtration. Okay, that's why it has so many blood vessels. After it filtrates the blood, no, it slowly forms the urine in the medulla. Okay, so ito siya until it flows into your um, tubes, collecting tubes and ducts, no, going to the ureter. Your ureter is also one on each kidney, no, this one, and it connects to your urinary bladder where the urine is stored, okay, and when it reaches its capacity, you will feel the urge to urinate. Okay, and your urinary bladder is made up of muscles, and when it's time to urinate, they start to contract, no, to flow the urine out of your meatus. Okay, so let's discuss the nephron. The nephron is the histological, no, and functional unit of the kidney. So this is how your nephron looks like, okay? And this, you will see this around here, okay? So remember this structure, no, this complicated structure, this is your nephron. Now you have two types of nephron. You have a juxtamedullary nephron and a cortical nephron. So let's discuss first your juxtamedullary nephrons. Juxtamedullary nephrons have renal corpuscles. So if you refer into this picture, your juxtamedullary nephrons are this one. Okay. Ito siya. Your juxtamedullary nephrons, meron mga renal corpuscles. Your renal corpuscles is this one, no? Itong portion na, ito yung bilog na parang bag of worms of blood vessels, okay? These nephrons are found in the cortex near the medulla. Okay, this portion here is your cortex. Now, imagine this is your kidney. This portion is the cortex. This part here is the medulla, yung inner portion. So when you say juxtamedullary nephrons, they are found deep in the cortex near the medulla. Okay? So ito siya juxtamedullary nephron, no? And they have long loops of Henle that extend. Okay? Ito yung kanyang tubules, no? The tubules of a juxtamedullary nephrons are so long that they extend towards your medulla. And this is only 15% of the nephron. The rest are cortical nephrons. Ito yung majority of the type of nephrons that you see in your kidneys. Okay? Yung cortical nephrons naman have renal corpuscles that are distributed throughout the cortex. So, nandito na sila. This one here is your cortical nephron. This one here is your juxtamedullary nephron. So, in comparison to a juxtamedullary nephron, the cortical nephrons have shorter loops of Henle and they are closer to the outer edge, no? Nandito lang sila sa cortical surface of the kidneys, okay? Now, your nephron would be composed of four regions. You have a renal corpuscle, This one, no? This portion is your renal corpuscle. You see? Later on, we will discuss specifically what composes your renal corpuscle. But you will see that this part here, the blood vessel, no, are your renal corpuscle. They filter the blood. Kasi that's why you have many blood vessels here because this is the filtering area for them. Okay? And you have a proximal convoluted tubule. By saying it's proximal, no, it's the one nearest to your renal corpuscle. That's why it's a proximal convoluted tubule. When you say convoluted, no, kulot siya. Okay? Ang function niyan is to return filtered substances to the blood. So once the blood reaches in your renal corpuscle, no, kasi ang daming blood vessels dyan, they will filter the blood. Okay, and yung nafi-filter nila would go through the proximal convoluted tubule. Pagdating sa proximal convoluted tubule, pipiliin ng convoluted tubule yung pwede pang magamit ng body. Yun yung ibabalik niya sa blood. Okay, that's why it returns filtered substances to the blood. Now, once the filtrate, no, yung na-filter would reach your loop of Henle. So here, you have an ascending loop of, you have a descending loop of Henle and ascending loop of Henle. They can also be a thick loop of Henle, and you also have a portion na thin loop of Henle. Okay? So, anong purpose ng loop of Henle is that they conserve water and solute. No? Kung kailangan ng water, you will reabsorb the water here. If you need the solutes, then it's also on this part, where in the loop of Henle, where the solutes are being reabsorbed, no, back to your blood. And the last portion is your distal convoluted tubule, okay? This part here, no? This distal convoluted tubule reads the blood of additional weight. So, after that, no, tatanggalin more yung mga additional waste that the body does not need. Okay? So, after the distal convoluted tubule, no, papunta na ito sa collecting ducts and going to the minor calyx. Ito is palabas na sa ureter. Okay? Okay, let's discuss your renal corpuscles thoroughly, no? So we mentioned that the renal corpuscle is the house of the filtration portion of the nephron, okay? So this is an example of a renal corpuscle. Meron siyang parts, no? First part is your glomerulus, okay? So you see, renal corpuscle is made up of these two structures. You have a Bowman capsule, which is this one, the outer portion, and the inner is a glomerular capillary. No? Ito, ang daming capillaries inside. This is a network of capillaries twisted around each other. That's your glomerulus. And yung Bowman's capsule mo have two layers, no? You have a parietal layer, yung outer portion, and you also have a visceral layer called the podocyte, no? That is directly in contact with the glomerulus, okay? So the Bowman's capsule is an indented double-walled chamber that surrounds the glomerulus. Okay? So, pagpasok ng blood dito, no, this is an artery, afferent arteriole. Once the blood enters here, it flows through all this network of capillaries, no? And as it flows here, slowly there is the filtration process. Okay? So, tatanggalin sa blood lahat ng pwedeng ma-filter. Okay? And once natanggal yung mga water, ion, solutes, no? That are, the filter na substances are called your filtrate. The fluid filtered from the glomerular capillaries, no, is your filtrate. This flows into the proximal convoluted tubule region of the renal tubule. So, ito siya. Afterwards, filtration process happens, the filtrate would go here, no? Proximal convoluted tubule region. So in the nephron, we have this very important structure called your juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is located next to the glomerulus. So if this is your glomerulus, yung juxtaglomerular apparatus natin is this one, no? Just beside the glomerulus, this portion here. Okay? It's made up of different cells. The first cell that we will discuss is your juxtaglomerular cells, also known as your JG cells, no? Para hindi mahirapan mag-pronounce, okay? This part here is your JJ cells. Meron ding portion na macula densa, itong portion na dito, okay? That's your juxtaglomerular apparatus, no? Made up of a juxtaglomerular cells and a macula densa, okay? So they are just located next to your glomerulus, okay? So if you see, parang nakabalot siya, no? Surrounding your afferent arteriole. Now, this is the point where the afferent arteriole enters the renal corpuscle. So it has a cuff, okay? It has a cuff made up of specialized smooth muscles, okay? Ito yung portion, these are the cells that secrete renin, no? Yung renin is being secreted when the JG cells detects that is a low pressure, no, in your afferent arteriole. So, this is an artery, okay? This is where the blood flows from the system, no, going to the kidney. Ang gagawin ng JG cells mo, it will be detecting, no, kumusta ang pressure sa afferent arteriole. Because we know that the kidneys regulate the blood volume and the blood pressure, okay? How does it detect? It will detect by the way of stretch, no? Kung masyadong stretched ang afferent arteriole, that is very high pressure. Pero if there's a reduced stretch here, meaning konti lang yung blood na pumapasok and that's causing the low blood pressure. Okay? So, anong gagawin ni renin? If in case there's a low blood ni GG cells na detect yun a low blood pressure, it will release renin, no? The enzyme renin. Now, this renin will be present in the blood. Okay, so I will discuss what is our renin-angiotensin system. Now, this is very important in maintaining the blood pressure. Okay. Okay. So, ito yung nadetect ng JG cells mo. A drop in blood pressure or a drop in your fluid volume. Okay. Pag yan, na-detect ng juxtaglomerular cells, it will produce the enzyme renin. Now, this renin will be present in the blood vessel. No? Nasa bloodstream na siya. So, it will circulate. Okay. You have a plasma protein called your angiotensinogen. Ito siya is also present in the blood, okay? This plasma protein is produced from the liver, okay? It's produced in the liver. So once it interacts, renin and your angiotensinogen, it will convert the angiotensinogen to become angiotensin 1. Okay? So, kailangan ng renin to convert this plasma protein to angiotensin 1. Okay? So, imagine, na-convert nyo na yung angiotensinogen, you have now an angiotensin 1 present in the blood. Okay? As the blood circulates, no, kapag nag-circulate siya in the lungs, no, the presence of angiotensin 1, it will encounter this enzyme ACE, no? That is your angiotensin converting enzyme. This is the one naman is released in the lungs. Now, once this ACE interacts with your angiotensin 1, this is converted to angiotensin 2. Okay? This is the protein that will affect, no, to increase the blood pressure. Why? This protein would constrict your blood vessels. Yun yung kanyang effect. So, once the protein, angiotensin 2 is present, it acts on your blood vessels, it makes it constrict, no? Ang effect niya is vasoconstriction. So, ganito na kaliit ang blood vessel mo, that means higher pressure, no? So, tataas ang pressure now. Okay, that's the renin-angiotensin system. So if you have a low blood pressure, this will be the process in order to increase the blood pressure. Yung isang effect niya is to stimulate the adrenal gland. No? The presence of angiotensin 2 will stimulate your adrenal gland to release a certain hormone called your aldosterone. Okay, this is mineralocorticoid. Okay? Anong effect ng aldosterone? They act on the kidney to reabsorb more salt. Okay? Salt and water. So, in that case, kapag nag-reabsorb ka ng maraming salt and water, no? By law, where salt is, water follows, no? So, kapag nag-reabsorb ka ng salt and water, then the fluid volume would also increase, no? So, that's the mechanism. The other structure present in your juxtaglomerular apparatus is your macula densa. So, nandito siya na part, no? As you see, it is also closer to your distal convoluted tubule. Ito niya yung convoluted tubule nyo, no? It's part of the distal convoluted tubule of the nephron, lies between the afferent and efferent arteriole, next the renal corpuscle. So, ano naman yung function ng iyong macula densa? These are cells that signal your JG cells to secrete renin. Okay? So, yun din yung isang niya, no, main function. When would it signal your JG cells to secrete this important enzyme renin? Kapag na-detect niya, no, yung macula densa nyo, kapag na-detect niya, kung mababa ang sodium concentration, no, in the filtrate. Okay? Ito yung distal convoluted tubule, mura niyag tilawan, no? Ang filtrate, dili parat, no? Dili parat ang filtrate. So, it will detect na low ang sodium concentration, then it will signal your JG cells, please produce renin now. Because there is low sodium concentration in the filtrate. Okay, so that's the process of your renin angiotensin plus your macula densa, no, playing a role in the renin angiotensin mechanism. Okay. So we go now to the process of urine production. You have three main processes. First is the filtration. We already discussed this one. No, the movement of materials across the filtrating membrane into the Bowman capsule to form the filtrate. Okay. So once the filtrate is already in the proximal convoluted tubules, no, there is now the process of tubular reabsorption. Okay? Pagdating ng filtrate to the renal tubules, the solutes will be reabsorbed across the wall of the renal tubule into the interstitial fluid by transport processes. So, the transport processes, pwede siyang active and co-transport, no? So, imagine here you have a filtrate. If the body detects, no, kailangan ko sodium, I will reabsorb sodium. Kailangan ko glucose, I will reabsorb glucose. No? So, they will all go back to the blood. Okay? And that moving into the blood can be via an active transport or a passive transport. Okay? Water is also reabsorbed. No? That's the orange arrow here. The wall of the renal tubule by way of osmosis, which is also a passive movement. No? Water and solutes pass from the interstitial fluid into the peritubular capillaries. And the last process would be the tubular secretion. No? When you say tubular secretion, the solutes are secreted across the wall of the renal tubule into the filtrate. Okay, so here, in the third process, which is your tubular circulation from the blood, no, it will be secreted towards the tubule naman. So, lahat ng ilalabas ng blood, no, it will be secreted towards the renal tubule. Yun yung magiging composition ng iyong urine. Okay? So, let's discuss each process. First is your filtration, which is a non-specific process whereby materials, no, such as your water and solutes, smaller than proteins, are separated based on size or charge. They are forced through the capillary walls and pores of the glomerular capsule into the renal tubule. Okay, that's the formation of your filtrate. Kidneys demonstrate size filtration, but the driving force that is being used in filtration is the blood pressure. Okay, so that's why it is very important for your JG cells to detect, no, the blood pressure coming in the afferent arteriole, because this is the driving force for the filtration process of your glomerulus. Okay. So this is the first step in urine production, and all blood components, no, except your blood cells and most proteins, can leave the glomerular capillaries and enter the Bowman capsule as a filtrate. It is a filtrate that will be modified into urine. No? So hindi talaga nakakalabas ang blood cells and most proteins kasi blood cells are really big molecules, no? They cannot pass through. And these are important in the body, no? So dapat nasa blood lang siya, no? And most proteins, okay, these are also very big molecules, and ang kanilang charges, no, will not allow them to be filtered. Now, sometimes if you have kidney problems, UTI, kidney infections, no, what you call your pyelonephritis, since your kidneys are not functioning well, that's the time you will see, oh, there's a red blood cell, there's a blood in the urine, there's an albumin, no, there's a glucose or sugar in the urine. And that means there's a problem with your filtrating process, okay? That means your kidneys are not functioning well if that happens, okay? So you check all your urinalysis tests. It has to be zero blood cells, zero proteins, no zero glucose, okay? There are several measurements for filtration that can be calculated as an indication of proper kidney function. So, itong filtration rates na to, they are checked. No? We have laboratories that check them. Kasi this would indicate that is the kidney functioning properly. Okay? So, the calculations can measure either the rate of whole blood flow or the rate of plasma flow. So, let's define this one. Renal fraction, this is the percentage of cardiac output that flows through the kidneys. When you say renal blood flow rate, this is the rate of whole blood flow through the kidneys. So whole blood, no? Kasi when you say renal plasma flow rate, this is only the portion of plasma. Okay, so you know the composition of your blood, diba? You have the plasma, you have the blood cells, okay? So ito siya is only referring to the plasma, no? Plasma flow rate. And when you say glomerular filtration rate, also known as your GFR, this is the rate of filtrate formed per minute, okay? And the filtration fraction, that's a percentage of plasma filtered from the blood. Okay, so GFR, our rate of filtrate form per minute normally in an adult is 1 ml per minute. That's why in 0.5 to I think 1.5 ml per kilogram per minute. Yun yung ating normal glomerular filtration rate. So that's why at least in an hour, you should have a 30 ml of urine. No? If you don't have that, then there's problem with your kidneys. Okay. So this is a table of the different calculation, no, of renal flow rates. The most important is this one. Okay, your GFR. And your urine is formed, no, 1 ml per minute. Okay, so this is just an overview. If you want to read more, then you can. Okay. The tubular reabsorption is the second process, no? So after the filtration process in the renal corpuscle, they go to the renal tubules, yung filtrate, no? This is the transport of water and solutes. Solutes can be a glucose, amino acid, or ions. They are transported out of the filtrate into the tubule cells, then into the capillary blood. Okay? So the water movement in the kidney is governed by osmosis. If water is reabsorbed, no, back to the blood by way of osmosis. If it's a solute, it moves through by way of diffusion. These two here are passive movement, no? If you remember your chemistry of life, we discussed osmosis and diffusion. And some molecules, if they are too large, no, to pass through the plasma membrane, then some of them would need an assistance, okay, in terms of moving them towards the blood capillaries, okay? Or if they have to move against a concentration gradient. So in these instances, they make use of a facilitated diffusion where there is use of transport proteins, no, which is still a passive movement, and there's also a sodium diffusion-driven movement. Now, this is a secondary active transport na, okay, which uses your ATP. The third process for urine formation is called your tubular secretion. Movement of non-filtered substances, usually toxic byproducts of metabolism and drugs or molecules not normally produced by the body, remove from the peritubular blood and they are secreted back to the tubule cells into the filtrate. So, lahat ng na-reabsorb, lahat ng mga non filtered substances that the body deemed no, tagged as a waste product or toxic products, or if they are drugs, no, or not needed by the body, from the blood, it will be secreted, no? Ilalabas nila pabalik sa tubule, then magiging part ulit ng filtrate. Okay? They also make use of either active or passive transport. So, pag passive transport, ito yung usually, no, na sisecrete ammonia. Ammonia is a toxic byproduct of protein metabolism produced when the epithelial cells of the renal tubule remove amino groups from amino acids which diffuse into the lumen of the renal tubule. Okay? So, ammonia is a toxic byproduct. So, dapat nilalabas natin yan. No? If it accumulates in our blood, no, this would create a lot of problems. Okay, that's why your kidneys take them away. No, they remove it from your blood. Those that move via active transport, no, needing energy, ATP, are your hydrogen. No, this movement is via an antiport process. When you say antiport, it's opposite in direction. May papasok in exchange, lalabas si hydrogen. Okay? It plays a major role in regulating your blood pH. Okay? So, if it's too much acidic, okay, the kidney will secrete hydrogen more. Okay? Para ilabas niya yung hydrogen. If if your blood has low a high pH, meaning basic, then it has to conserve hydrogen back, no? And yung isang uh, 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 system that also regulates is your respiratory system, your lungs, no? By producing carbon dioxide, okay? Next are your potassium. So they move via active transport, your creatinine, your penicillin, that's a drug, and we have here a para-aminohippuric acid or your PAH. This is a medical diagnostic chemical. No, they use it in the laboratory to identify, no, yung uh, function ng iyong tubules. Okay? They are actively secreted by either active transport or antiport processes into the renal tubule. Kailangan, if they give this no, as a diagnostic chemical, no, if the kidney is functioning properly, kung ilan yung binigay na PAH, dapat yun din yung lalabas. They have to be equal in amount. Kasi your kidney, a normal functioning kidney will excrete all of this. No? Hindi niya kailangan to sa body. Okay, these are the concentration of the major solutes in your urine. No? Pagdating sa urine, no, marami siyang urea. Yun yung main component niya. And then the creatinine, okay, uric acid. Yan yung main component. Then, water. And a little bit of your ions. But mostly they are reabsorbed. Okay? Sige. So that's all for this urinary system.